Welcome to Kevin Deal Photography, where I take you on my journey through photography. On today's episode, we are going to be doing my top 5 things I'd like to see from Canon in 2023 wish list. Welcome to today's episode. If you're not familiar with Kevin Deal Photography, we do gear reviews, tips, techniques, and tutorials, and sometimes we dive into film. If any of that sounds appealing to you, click the subscribe button below. So if you're watching today's episode on the premiere day, it is the morning of January 1st. Hopefully you are not too hungover. I won't try to speak too loudly as I don't want to interfere with your hangover. However, I do want to briefly address 2022. I started this channel in January. I didn't really upload anything until March, and I really didn't get the channel going until May. So I've only had about 8 months to get things going, and in that time we are quickly approaching 2,000 subscribers, which I don't think is too bad considering that I don't really know what I'm doing. However, 2023, I'm going to take things a bit more seriously, and we are going to attack this channel a little more full speed ahead. So I am setting a lofty but realistic goal of 10,000 subscribers. So in today's episode, we are going to be talking about the 5 things I wish Canon would do in 2023. I doubt they care what I actually think, but I'm going to voice my opinions anyway. Yes, I do realize I am wearing a Fuji hat. Canon doesn't give away free swag when they come to town for their events, and Fuji does, and the sun is out, and hey, I needed to have something to protect my eyes, so I'm using this Fuji hat and my sunglasses. But today's episode is about Canon, so let's dive right into it. This isn't going to be a countdown list because I find that there are many different types of photographers out there, so my number one thing may not be your number one thing, depending on the style of photographer or videographer that you are. But let's go ahead and start with something that I think is important, which is it is now 2023 and the RF mount was launched in 2018. I'm not very good at math, but if you take 23 and subtract 18 from that, you get 5. So we are half a decade into the Canon RF mount, and we still don't have a flagship 35mm prime lens. Where is the 35mm prime lens? As I said earlier, I doubt Canon cares what I think, but if I were in charge of launching an entire line of lenses, having a 35mm prime, a flagship 35mm prime, would have been something I would have done on day one. It's a bit curious, they did launch the 135mm, which I would have included on today's list, but it actually has been announced and some people actually have it and are using it. And yes, I will be using mine when it arrives. I did order one, I will be doing an in-depth review on it, and I will also be comparing it to my EF 135 f2. But if I'm being completely honest, that is a specialty lens. That is a lens for a very specific set of people, such as myself. I do outdoor portrait photography. Wedding photographers, for instance, they would benefit from a 135, but the majority of you are probably going to benefit more from just a standard 35, which is a much more practical lens for many of you. And as to why we are half a decade into the RF mount and we haven't seen one yet is beyond me. Yes, I do realize that Canon did launch the RF 35 1.8 IS macro at the time that they launched the whole EOS R and RF mounts, and it is a great lens that punches above its weight class, but it does have some shortcomings. You can check out my review in the description below where I talk about what I like and what I don't like about that lens. But one thing it is not is a full-fledged L lens. It doesn't have the weather sealing. It does exhibit some chromatic aberrations and things like that. I want a 35mm that matches my 50 and my 85 and hopefully the 135 as far as image quality. In regards to a 35mm prime at 1.2, Canon has been rumored to be putting out 3 wide-angle lenses in 2023. They have not announced the focal lengths, but 35 is technically a wide-angle lens. It's wider than a normal field of view, so let's hope that 35 is one of their major 3 announcements for wide-angle lenses in 2023. Number 2, we're going to talk about the Canon R5 Mark II. Now, it was somewhat debatable as to whether or not Canon needed to update the R5 into a Mark II version, but with the launch of the R6 Mark II and the fact that the R7 has an autofocus that's better than the R5, I think Canon has kind of forced the issue, and now it is time for them to maybe look into getting an R5 Mark II. Especially videographers out there. When you look at the video features of the R5, yeah, it does do 8K, but you know, if you want your stuff to not overheat in 5 seconds, you have to use an external monitor. You can't really use it outdoors. There's a lot of shortcomings of the video features on the R5. Overheating, record limit times. Those have been solved with the R7, and those have been solved with the R6 Mark II. So when you think about it in terms of autofocus, the R3 is the best that they make, and then you could argue that the R6 Mark II is better, and then the R7, and then fourth on the list in terms of autofocus is the R5. Well, the R5 is supposed to be the second best current camera from Canon, but it's the fourth best in terms of autofocus, and I would probably argue it's the third or fourth best in terms of video, but I'm not even talking about their cinema line like the R5C. It may even be fifth. Yes, it does do 8K, but with lots of limitations. So having an R5 Mark II would be a really cool thing for 2023. I have seen in the rumors that the R5 Mark II is going to be coming out in 2023, and then it's going to have like 67 megapixels, and it's going to have like pixel shift, and it's going to have a lot of those upgraded features and video and all that, but as of right now, it is just currently a rumor, so until it has been officially announced, I'm going to put it on my list of things that I want to see in 2023. Number 3, more innovative lenses from Canon. What's that? You just heard me talking about how I want more practical lenses like a 35 1.2. You're right, I do want more practical lenses like a 35 1.2. In 2018, when the RF mount was launched, Canon surprised everybody and came out with this really cool lens called the RF 28-70 f2. And that lens is so popular that it's not in stock anywhere. I actually did a review of that lens. You can check it out in the link in the description below, and you can see why I love to use that lens so much. You can also see a link in the description below to an editorial fashion shoot that I did. But the reason why people love that lens so much is if you're okay sacrificing 4mm on the wide end and adding a little bit of weight, it's basically a 24-70, but you get an extra stop of light out of it, which is pretty awesome and unprecedented, and it wasn't actually possible to make a lens like that before because the new flange distance of mirrorless cameras allows for optical quality breakthroughs, and now you can have cool lenses like the 28-70 f2. One of the reasons many people love the 28-70 f2 is because for some of you it can actually replace your prime lenses, and so with that mentality you can walk into a photo shoot, you can leave maybe your 50mm and your 35mm at home, and that's what makes that lens so cool. Now to me, I actually do a comparison where I compare it to the Canon prime lenses, and I find that it falls short on like the 85mm in a couple areas, but in general, it's a really fantastic lens. And I have seen rumors that Canon is going to come out with something like a 70-135 f2. And so I'm just sitting here thinking, well, okay, if I have a 28-70 f2, a 70-135 f2, and then maybe Canon comes out with something like a 15 or a 16-28 f2, we could make an f2 holy trinity. That would be pretty awesome. And so I would like to see Canon push some boundaries in 2023 and come out with some more innovative lenses in addition to making practical lenses that we all are expecting. Number 4, I would like to see Canon come out with 70-200 non-IS lenses in both f2.8 and f4. Me, myself, I don't need image stabilization, and 70-200 isn't really a go-to focal range for me. But when I do need it, I do need it. However, when I do need it, I don't really need the IS, especially since all the new bodies come with IBIS. So I would like a 70-200 f2.8 with no image stabilization, preferably in the exact same body as the 70-200 f4 IS, but without the IS, the extra stop of light, and then you get the image quality of the 2.8. And then hopefully this will come in at a price point kind of in the same price point as the 70-200 f4 IS, so somewhere between about $1,500 and $1,800. I think that would be fantastic. And man, if they came out with an f4 version of it that was even lighter than the 70-200 f4 IS and put it at like $999, that would be a game changer. Number 5 on the list, the final thing on the list. I would like to see Canon come out with an entry level into their cinema line of cameras for less than $5,000. As of right now, you'd have to get into something like an R5C, which is a fantastic camera. It's an amazing camera, but it's about $5,000 after tax. And that's really too expensive for a lot of you out there, and I totally understand. So if Canon could come in with something like an R7C, something that's a crop sensor matches up really well with Super 35. Maybe you could put a fan in it, but you could also not put a fan in it and just put better technology in it that cools. Or you could follow Fuji's lead and you could put an optional fan that you can screw on to the back, to the viewfinder. That would be fantastic. But have that come in around $2,000, $2,500. Let it have that dedicated menu that you get on the R5C. Put it on a crop sensor body. Allow people to take stills. But if you really wanted it to be a game changer, you'd implement some of the technology that you have in your C70 and allow for internal ND filters. So anyway, those are the 5 things that I think Canon should do in 2023, but I'm going to leave you with one bonus thing that I want to see Canon come out with in 2023, and this is really a plea to all camera manufacturers, and I want to see you guys put tracking devices in all of the cameras. Now, I know what some of you tinfoil hat conspiracy theorists are thinking, oh man, they're going to know where we are at all times. Make sure you give them the ability to turn it off. And no, I'm not oblivious to the fact that if you do have some sort of a tracking device in your camera, that you are gonna have to have some sort of an online portal, kind of like Find My Phone has. So if you sell an iPhone, which iPhones have them built in, when you transfer ownership of the iPhone, the Find My Phone gets assigned to another account. I know Canon's gonna have to put some sort of an infrastructure in place. So if you sell your camera on the secondhand market, that the new owner can find the phone and not the old owner. Maybe the old owner can go steal the camera back or something because they know where it is. They'll need to have some sort of a technology thing that they have to work out there, but this is not new technology. They've had GPS in 6Ds back in 2012 that can track your position. Have an option to where it does it when the camera's off, but it's something that you can select. I think that would be great. Right now I'm having to use AirTags and put them in the lining of my camera bags, which is great. I love AirTags, but if someone steals my camera and then takes it out of the bag, well, now the AirTag is just telling me where the bag is. It doesn't tell me where the camera is. And if you're spending $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, heck, even if you're only spending $999 on a camera, I think having tracking technology is something that we could all benefit from. I think it's something that the industry is long overdue and it needs to have implemented in camera technology. And the fact that I can go into an Apple store and buy AirPods for $150, and if someone steals my AirPods, I can actually track my AirPods. There's no reason why $150 earphone technology should have more advanced tracking technology than $6,000, $7,000, or even $10,000 cameras. So anyway, that is my episode for today. I'm here in downtown Houston, so you can hear the trains. But that is my episode for today. I hope you all have a wonderful new year. If you like what you saw, click the subscribe button below. I appreciate the support. I'm putting my glass up. Let's cheers to an awesome 2023 together. I have lots of episodes planned around Canon, Fuji, and film, and they're all coming down the pipeline. So I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Mm-hmm.